It started in a diner at the edge of Scranton, cracked red booze, the smell of burnt coffee, and the sound of tired laughter trying to mask exhaustion. It was the kind of place where paychecks vanished before they hit the bank, where the same people showed up every morning because not showing up meant falling even further behind. That's where Anthony Scaramucci and Kenneth Rogoff found themselves one rainy afternoon, sitting across from a waitress named Mary who'd been on her feet for 11 hours. She smiled like people who have nothing left to lose but refuse to surrender. "Coffee?" she asked, refilling their mugs without waiting for a reply. Her name tag was half broken, her hands rough from years of scrubbing, lifting, surviving. Anthony noticed it immediately, the quiet dignity of a woman who kept this small corner of America running while everyone else debated policies and forecasts on TV. That's when it hit him. All the debates, the Wall Street panels, the cable news appearances, none of it meant a damn thing if people like Mary were still breaking their backs for pennies while billion-dollar corporations paid less in taxes than her diner did for electricity. Ken, a Harvard economist, leaned in thoughtfully. "You know, Anthony," he said softly, "numbers don't bleed, but people do. Economies look fine on paper because the suffering is invisible there." Anthony stirred his coffee, eyes distant. "Then maybe it's time we make it visible." They began their journey across America, not the polished boardrooms or think tanks, but the back roads and bus stops, the factories half closed and the neighborhoods left behind. They talked to truckers who couldn't afford gas, teachers who worked side jobs just to buy school supplies, and nurses who hadn't taken a vacation in a decade. Everywhere they went, the story was the same: prices rising, wages flat, and the powerful playing chess with lives that weren't theirs to move. One night in Detroit, they met James, a former assembly line worker who'd lost his job after the plant moved overseas. He sat beside the rusting gates where he used to clock in, holding a folded photograph of his kids. "I gave 30 years to that plant," James said, voice cracking. "When the machines came, I trained the guys who replaced me. Now I'm training myself to believe I still matter." Ken's eyes softened. "You do matter," he said. "The problem isn't you, it's a system that rewards efficiency over humanity." Anthony looked at the skyline behind the man, factories dark, streets silent, and felt a weight settle in his chest. He'd once believed the market could fix everything. But now, he saw what the market never calculated: the value of a man's pride. Weeks turned into months. Their journey became a movement, a reckoning. Anthony spoke in town halls, not with the fire of a politician but the sincerity of a man who'd seen too much to stay quiet. Ken provided the numbers, the data, the proof that this wasn't just about feelings, it was a crisis of fairness. They argued that the working class wasn't asking for handouts. They were asking for balance. For a system where effort meant opportunity, not exhaustion. In one unforgettable town hall in Ohio, Anthony stood before a crowd of steelworkers, single mothers, and veterans. The room was thick with frustration, but also hope. He raised his voice. "They told us the economy was booming, but booming for who? The stock market isn't the heartbeat of this country, you are. And if you can't afford to live, to dream, to send your kids to college, then what kind of success are we really celebrating?" The crowd erupted. It wasn't anger, it was recognition. For the first time, someone wasn't speaking at them but for them. But change never comes easy. They faced critics, elites calling them populists, pundits calling them naive. "You can't fix inequality with empathy," one anchor sneered during an interview. Anthony smiled faintly. "No," he replied, "but you can't fix it without it, either." Ken wrote articles, published data, and even challenged central bankers on live TV. He called it the invisible recession, the erosion of the middle class masked by inflated markets and political spin. His message was simple: when a nurse can't afford healthcare, and a teacher can't afford education, the system is broken. The message spread. People started to listen. Not just the working class, but the conscience of a nation that had forgotten its own backbone. Months later, back in that same Scranton diner, Mary was still there. But something had changed. The TV above the counter was playing a segment about wage reform, quoting Anthony and Ken. Mary laughed softly. "Looks like somebody's finally talking about us," she said. Anthony smiled. "No, Mary, he said, we're listening to you. Ken lifted his coffee cup. To the people who keep this country alive. Mary raised hers back. And to the day we finally get what we've earned. That night, as they drove back under the flickering neon lights, Anthony looked out at the passing streets. Small homes, dimly lit, filled with ordinary heroes. He turned to Ken and said, you know, they keep saying the working class is getting screwed. But what they don't see is that the working class never quits. Ken nodded. Maybe that's America's greatest strength. Anthony looked out the window again, his reflection mixing with the blur of the road ahead. Then maybe it's time we build an economy worthy of their strength. The rain began to fall, soft and steady, washing the grime off the windshield like hope returning after a long storm. And somewhere between the past they'd lived and the future they still believed in, two men, one from Wall Street, one from academia, found something worth more than numbers or power. They found purpose.